am supposed to take roll call, though, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And Michelle is, if you haven't figured it out, Michelle is not here. All right, counting down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Brisbane Open Space Ecology, Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting for Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. I'm going to call the meeting to order and take the roll call. So, Mary?
Here.
Here. We got Barbara?
Here.
All right. And Rohendra?
Here.
Hi there. All right. And we've got Aaron over here.
Here.
All right. And Julie?
Present.
All righty. And I'm Anthony. I am here too. And Michelle is out today. All right. So, yeah, do we have any changes to the agenda? Are we under that now, the agenda? Yeah, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Any changes? Any?
I
Oh.
adopt the agenda. I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Mary, can you make sure to speak into a mic?
Yeah, sorry. I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
Vote. All in favor?
All in favor? Yeah.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved.
I will note, Rohendra, since you were not on the committee at last meeting, you should probably abstain from the adoption of the minutes. Noting for the record.
Approval of minutes.
Approval of minutes, yes. Sorry about that.
All right, so announcements. Do we have any announcements?
I was actually going to suggest, since we have a brand new member and a member who has only had one meeting with us, maybe we would like to do some introductions. I know Julie introduced herself last time, but didn't really get to hear who everyone else is. So we might want to just take a minute to do some proper introductions all the way around.
Oh.
Julie Armstrong. Lived in Brisbane for 2 years now. Interested in biological sciences and data analysis. I have a dog, so I'm interested in dog issues. I'm yanking foxtails everywhere I find them before they go to seed. And enjoying my time on the committee so far. Lots of reading on the weekend.
I'm Erin Becker. I've lived in Brisbane since 2020. I've been in OSEC for a few years. I was part of Dark Skies, though most of the credit goes to Barbara, and also part of invasive species ordinances. And I pull weeds out of my property in my spare time as a delightful hobby.
I'm Anthony Walker. I've been in Brisbane since late 2017, I guess. Yeah, I have a particular interest. Well, I'm a product designer by trade, and particular interest in greenhouse gas emissions issues and home electrification.
I'm Mary Rogers. I've been living in Brisbane probably for like 36 years. This is my 8th year with OSEC. My background is finance in the biotech industry. I've been with biotech for 35 years plus. And I'm glad I'm on this committee because we need to make the world better. And what a great place to start than with Brisbane. So everybody here, I've learned a lot from this committee. So thank you.
I'm Rohendra Atapatu, and I think everyone. Oh, maybe you have.
You want to use this?
Okay. Okay. Again, I'm Rohendra Atapatu, and I'm the new one here at the committee. My background is in mechanical engineering and sustainability. I'm a sustainability manager for a lab close to Stanford, and I've been in Brisbane about 3 years now. And my interest is really, I was quite amazed when I moved here how close to nature you could be, but still be in a city. And I feel like it's a great place to participate and have sustainability and ecology all together. So I look forward to learning a lot from others and contributing. Thank you.
Barbara Ebel, 23 years in Brisbane and something like a decade on this committee around that. Work in project management, lifelong environmentalist, member of Riot for Austerity, really focused in on, cutting my personal carbon footprint like 80% and want to share and empower other people to do similar things in their own way.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. It's yeah, good to do that every so often. Get to know everybody on the committee. So, welcome, Rohendra.
Thank you.
All right. So, do we have oral communications? We have an article.
I did. I got this after I had already sent the packet. So, but a fond hello from former OSEC member Glenn Fieldman, and she shared this really excellent article about geothermal districts. So the link is on the screen. I can send that in a follow-up. I have another follow-up thing that I'll mention in my staff updates later that I'll need to send you as well. So I'll send you both at the end of the meeting or tomorrow morning, but definitely recommend checking it out, especially I think I may have already sent it to our CAP subcommittee members, but really interesting.
Yeah, I read it this morning. It was very interesting.
Yeah, we talked about that as a possibility for the Baylands. It's very difficult to retrofit in district heating, but if you're starting from scratch, it's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah. I was going to say, how soon can we get started? All right. Great. So let's move on to the minutes. Do we have approval of the minutes for February 26th?
I think we might have an oral communication.
Oh, yes, hello.
No,
No?
no, he's on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Not related to your.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So, Paul Bouscal,
Thing was a clue.
Brisbane resident. I've been here since 1982, and I was one of the early Open Space and Ecology Committee members, as well as on the board with San Bruno Mountain Watch for a long time. And I'm really appreciative of the city and the work that the Open Space and Ecology Committee has done to secure the protection, for the most part, of the Brisbane acres. And I'm very appreciative of the efforts made to make sure the 48 acres that the city purchased were put into open space on the deeds. And with that said, I look forward to the protection that you've not only provided for the species on the mountain, but, perennial grasslands and wetlands are better at sequestering carbon than planting trees. So that's going to go a long way in the efforts that Open Space and Ecology Committee does, as well as Mountain Watch and other groups. Removing the invasives on the mountain in the perennial grasslands especially is so critical, and I appreciate your ongoing efforts. So thanks for the work you did on protecting the acres.
Thank you, Paul. All righty, so on to the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes? Yeah. All right. Any changes to note?
No changes for me.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Well,
I have to abstain because I wasn't here as well.
yes.
Oh, okay.
So
That leaves two of us, yeah.
That leaves four of us.
Oh, four.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
I second that.
all right. Minutes are approved.
You need to ask for the vote.
Oh.
All in favor?
Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
Aye.
it's only the four of us. Yeah. So aye. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Alrighty, now, so we have old business. What do we have?
So we talked about this last month, but since we didn't have Rohendra, we wanted to bring it back. And now we do have a date for when the EIR is going to be coming out. So that is actually, is that next week, April 3rd. So just about time for the real reading homework to begin. So I thought we'd go ahead and look at the assignments again and give folks an opportunity to potentially change or jump in. So I've got the list here, and then I will just say that ideally we have one person to share the load, but if we have multiple people that want to review a section, either that could happen independently or potentially 2 or 3 people could work together in a subcommittee to put your comments together for that chapter. And then we do have are expecting the comment period to be 150 days, which puts us to the end of August. So just kind of have that in mind as far as time frame, and we'll kind of put together some, specific timelines on when comments from the committee will be due to staff so that we can, as we did with the quarry, compile them into one document, post them with your packet so you can all review what other people have said and, adopt them as your official, kind of comments for the committee. And as we get started with the document, if there is any kind of process that needs to happen in between, we could potentially discuss that, or if anybody wants to make any suggestions to that effect tonight, we certainly could, although I think we'll, kind of need to see what the document looks like.
Alrighty, so looks like we've got the quarry assignments on the left and Bayland maybes on the right here. How are folks feeling?
So I think you suggested the socioeconomic effects for the Baylands, that it was open for me. I'm willing to do that. So I'll take that on.
Okay.
And below
Great.
also, I think there's a question mark for aesthetic resources. I'm willing to do that one also, since no one else is there.
Okay, fantastic.
Excellent. We do also have the land use and planning policy section that is open. I would expect that one to be pretty meaty, actually.
Actually, I read the section 3.1 for the quarry as well, just because it actually flowed into 3.2, and I had to read it. There might be 2 people that need to do that one. It is meaty, or it was in the quarry at least.
4.1?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It was 3.1 before.
Yeah, and I think we talked about before, it doesn't look like we're expecting the Baylands EIR to have a chapter on population and housing. I think, Barbara, you had asked about that last time. So that may also be wrapped up in land use and planning policy. So yeah, it might be a good idea to have a couple people on that.
Interesting.
At least this is based on what was in the notice of preparation, the list of expected chapters in the EIR.
Is the same the case about agriculture and forestry?
It does not. I don't think we would expect that for the Baylands. I think that one's not.
Not applicable.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm not gonna have any cows? Man. That's right.
I will read it, but it's not my area of expertise in any way, so I'm really just doing it to be that second person for 4.1.
Yeah, I'm willing to tackle it, but if I do it, I don't think I want to do the other as well. Seems like 3 would be too much, especially if 4.1 is going to be really heavy. So sort of is my offer is contingent on somebody else picking up 5 and 6.
Maybe Michelle will
feel like an extra chapter. I think it, yeah. I was actually also going to add my list to the ones that she took for 13. It flow, like, if it's anything like the quarry, they kind of go together.
I'll be willing to take on 5 then, the reversible environmental impacts. Isn't that the one you wanted?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just, if I'm going to do 4-1, I don't want to, it's too much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're missing Michelle, and she may have an interest and willingness to take on some of these. So we could pencil
How
things
about
in.
Julie? Are you interested in anything?
I'm actually interested in transportation, and Mary has 4, like she said, and I only have 2. So we could do transportation together, or I could lighten your load, Mary, because from reading the specific plan, that was an area that jumped out at me. It's up to you. I don't want to take it away from you. I think it's just, it got a lot of conversation in the specific plan, and it's an obvious impact. But like I said, I can do it with you. Sure. But I only had 2 and you had 4, so it didn't really seem fair.
So 6 is still unassigned, I think. I think that's the only thing that's not.
So, I mean, I think everybody will have plenty to get through in that first month. We could always keep that open, see how it comes out as far as, you know, page counts and what Michelle might be willing to step in on, and keep this on the agenda for next month to see whether further changes are needed or who might have capacity to step in on Chapter 6.
I think that's great once we know what the page counts are and how meaty those chapters are.
Yeah. Okay.
And can you confirm it's supposed to be released April 3rd and it's not due until September?
End of August, I believe.
End
Did
of
they have a
August.
specific date?
It was in the in the
August
blast today,
31st?
but I don't remember it.
Sorry, I
But
don't
yeah,
even
it was,
think I read
it
the
was
blast yet.
reasonable.
Yeah. End of August.
Okay.
So I think that would mean probably because our meetings are already close to the end of the month, so we might need content from you a couple weeks ahead. So maybe be thinking in your mind early or mid-August. But I'll have to look at the calendar as far as how that all shakes out, and we can, you know.
I was taking a walk by the old community center, and they have all the meeting agendas listed. There was a flyer up there. I was reading it, and it's the draft EIR public comment period, and they're saying it's generally 45 days, which is not the case. So just in case anyone calls in and says it says 45 days, it's really 150, which I'm appreciative for. So, but it is sitting out there on the board.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on then, yes?
All right, great.
We didn't discuss, is the format going to be the same as last time? Well, you'll send us a template and then we fill in page numbers and comments.
Yes, I can send out assignments as they stand,
Okay.
along with, it'll be the same template as before, I think, unless anybody sees any reason to change it. So I would just mention, you know, remember as you're writing for OSEC as a body.
Thank you.
Perfect.
And there's nothing precluding you from having your own comments on the side submitted separately with all of your opinions.
Okay, great. So should we move on to new business? We have a frog habitat update from Paul Bouscal.
So I'll introduce Paul. We were talking about this is about the frog habitat that we're calling Guadalupe Valley Cypress area frog habitat, and it has been maintained by Mountain Watch members in the past, and then there was kind of a lull in terms of ability to maintain, and OSEC wanted to kind of get some volunteer events going and kind of get the maintenance of that Pacific chorus frog habitat back. And Paul Bouscal was out there and had gotten some permission to do some stuff in the natural part of the channel, but the OSEC focus was on the concrete part of the channel. So he's kind of taken that on, and we talked a little bit about having some volunteer days, and Paul said he'd be willing to come to the committee and talk to you about what his ideas are and get feedback. So I'm going to turn it over. You want to play the video first? Is that?
Sure.
All right.
It's 9.5 minutes.
Give me a moment, because we don't have audio.
Oh, is it here maybe? Not gonna be good without audio.
No, it's not going to be good without audio. Okay, I'm going to add a backup plan. We're going to see if it works this way.
I think this is just gonna play it on this computer, right? Can I unmute this? This is gonna make it sound. Yeah, but it's going to the,
It was running there for a second.
but not with sound.
Ah, I see.
Fucking Mary.
There's a little button for join audio. Maybe it thinks we need to.
What's the little video on the left side on the bottom outside the frame?
Could it be this one?
It's a Zoom thing, and we generally don't want to use audio from our computers because we want the audio to go through the room microphones and the room audio. So,
Okay, so not that.
Paul, how about this? Why don't you talk a little bit about your pictures and other slides first, and I can check in the booth to see if they have any ideas about how we can get the audio.
Paul Bouscal. So that video was made back in 2013. And in 2014, it won the Bernal Heights Film Festival's Audience Appreciation Award, which is a big deal in San Francisco. And the reason for this video that I had made, which if you YouTube industrial wetlands, when you get a chance, you can watch it at your leisure if we don't get it up. But the takeaway from that video was the fact that this habitat is on city property and private property. And so the city many years ago agreed to allow this gentleman, Jim McKissick, who's from El Cerrito and is passionate about these habitats. I got involved with them. And to date, now the city, like they had mentioned, Mountain Watch was taking care of it. And then for many years, it went back to the willows filling in again. And once that happens, the water becomes anaerobic and therefore supports only mosquito larvae. And once we daylight the creek and get a lot of good sunshine in there, then it becomes aerobic and is full of aquatic life. So months ago, it did look in pretty bad shape, the channel along the building, not the channel that I take care of from Cypress Lane, which is not a concrete channel. And there was this grass in there, and I can't think of the name of it, but it grows like this tall, and it's very invasive. And it's the type of grass that doesn't like its feet wet, but it likes to be right on the edge. So that would have been too much work for the volunteers to come out, and I needed to get that grass out before we had a volunteer day. And so the city agreed to have their landscapers come out, and 6 people spent a whole day out there digging that stuff out. And it was amazing how much they took out of there, 2 truckloads full of these bags of this invasive grass. Well, now it's manageable. So I'm hoping, and the city has agreed to have volunteer days out there at the habitat. And the first one I'd like to have is just a light planting, and then Mountain Watch has a very capable scientific type person. His name's Russ, that did the amphibian walk, and I'm not sure if any of you made that with Mountain Watch or not, but I would like to have that person, and Mountain Watch has agreed to schedule to have educators out there when we're doing our volunteer days, so they can help disseminate stuff that's going on out there, and we could focus on doing some planting, and then, you know, like a regular restoration day, have people out there. So if I could just show you a couple slides. The one on your left are large tadpoles, as you could see. They're really dependent on their herbivores at first. They just eat algae, and when you see them on the surface, they're getting pollen, and then they become omnivores to where they start to eat aquatic life. There's water fleas and worms and all these things that are in the water, and then they become carnivores when they become frogs. And if you can see on the middle slide, there's a frog on that stick on the right, and then to the left on the stick, there's an egg mass. It's kind of hard to see because there's so much pollen and stuff on the surface of the water. But there are hundreds of egg sacs down there in the vegetation that just hangs into the water. So, and then of course on the right, those are more developed tadpoles. It's difficult to see, but it's really important. And you know, the city has mentioned over time, like council members and others, like maybe we can extend this frog habitat. And personally, I think it's the most viable habitat because the water seeks its own level. And you know, when you get down to the end near the tunnel along 100 Cypress Lane, then the water's actually flowing. The water near Cypress Lane in the big pools are just standing water. So they're seasonal wetlands. And yeah, I'm excited about this possibility because, like the gentleman Jim McKissick before me, when he left, then Mountain Watch took over. Then when Mountain Watch took over, nobody took over. And then I took over, and I had bunion surgery, and I had a cast on for 3 months, and then I had a DVT, which is a deep vein thrombosis, and then a pulmonary embolism all within the same day from this blood clot. And I bring that up because had something happened to me, like I've seen other projects, unfortunately, they go by the wayside. So my hope is that we could create stewards that can take over and be responsible for this habitat. And that's what this first event, I hope, would create, people that would like to volunteer and come out. And, you know, I was thinking like every 3 months, have a volunteer day out there, or twice a year, whatever the city thinks they could do. But, you know, once we get volunteers out there like myself, people tend to come on their own and do what they can. And most of it's like picking up garbage. Like right now, we don't want to be near the edges of the water. And that's why I did a lot of the work ahead of time, so we wouldn't have volunteers in the habitat whenever the frogs are breeding and they're trying to rest, because the frogs themselves don't need the water. That's only for them to lay their eggs. So I guess that's all I have.
How many
Was the
species?
video?
Oh, how many species of frogs are there?
So it's Pacific Coors frogs, what we'd call tree frogs, and that's the only species.
Oh.
And yeah, that's exciting. I mean, are there any questions?
The volunteer days, is there a time we can,
You're
Mary,
getting mic.
oops, oh, sorry. For volunteer days, are there times when we shouldn't touch the habitat?
So like now would be the time
Time
not
to
to
do
touch
it,
the
yeah.
habitat. And that's why the plantings are outside on the boundary of the habitat. And we would keep people from walking along the edges of the water.
Okay.
And that's why if anybody's been out there, you'll see the willow branches that I've laid along there
See
just
those.
to show that there's like a barrier here and don't cross, even though the horses that they come in there, they go in there and let their horses drink from the water, which is, I wish they wouldn't do that, but you can't really keep them out, even though there's signs. But yeah, to your point, now would not be the time, but to put plants in for the pollinator garden on either end, because there's some beautiful plants. I don't know if you've been out there to see them at 100 Cypress Lane. It's on the Crocker Trail. So this abuts the Crocker Trail. And the reason why Mountain Watch, I had Mountain Watch back in the day, we paid a filmmaker, one of our board members, to make that film, was I was hoping to get people in the industrial park involved to want to be financial stewards to some degree. But that never developed. But who knows, once we actually have something that's sanctioned and people know that there's something going on out there more than just one person taking care of it. And I'm by no means am I complaining, because I'm grateful that the city and the property owners have given me the opportunity to be able to be out there and do what I'm doing. So
Is the planting to provide terrestrial habitat for the adult frogs, or to
the
keep
planting,
the invasives out? Or?
no, they have that, and that's why a lot of that wood is their habitat where they hide.
Okay.
But it's more for pollinators
Okay.
to have a
food
balance out there to make these little corridors. Because the last thing I'll share with you, and it's in the video, when you see the birds, arroyo willows, which dominate, that's one of the dominant trees there, and coast live oaks are the top keystone species for biodiversity. They serve over 600 species with food. So that's not only critical frog habitat, it's critical for the birds, because the two primary species of trees are there, as well as toyons. And once we removed all the invasive trees that were there, the natives that pretty much reestablish themselves along the creek bed are flourishing. So
Adrian has a map of where it is for anybody that doesn't know.
okay. Any questions? More questions?
So for the volunteers, are you looking for mainly people to clear some of the invasive species? Is that what I'm getting? That's the
So-
first urgent need?
No, it would be planting, because the invasive species are border the edges, and it's the dry time of the year is when you could go in and start clearing stuff out, because the frogs are hanging out and gopher holes and under logs and stuff like that. So you're not impacting the habitat.
So you want to plant now in the spring?
Yeah, it's not ideal. Fall would have been more ideal, but because I'm able to water the plants, we can maintain them. And anybody that's seen the plants at Cypress Lane, the pollinator area, those plants went all through last summer without being watered. So natives are highly adaptable to the extremes. You know, it takes like 1 year. You have to, kind of baby them and water them. But after that, they don't need any maintenance for the most part. So.
Is there any censusing of the population to see if it's increasing, decreasing, staying the same? Or is it just too hard to count them?
For the frogs? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. My spectrum is more, I'm a tool as opposed to the scientific part of it. But the San Mateo County Resource District, I don't know if you've heard of them. They're a big force in the county. They came out and assessed the property, and they said it's viable. The mosquito abatement group, they come out and they don't have to treat the water because it's aerobic. You know, mosquitoes only like anaerobic water. You'll never see mosquito larvae in that water because it's healthy.
Do you have any days in mind for the volunteer days, or?
Well, it would probably be a weekend, so
Okay.
any day but the third Saturdays of the month, because that's when I lead hikes for San Bruno Mountain Watch.
Okay.
So whatever you come up with, I would be able to accommodate being there, and as long as I can know ahead of time, so I could let Mountain Watch know, so we can get some educators out there that day.
I have a couple logistical questions. How many people are you hoping for?
Well, a dozen.
Okay.
Or more. I mean, however many could be out there.
Okay.
But,
yeah, because when Mountain Watch has volunteer days on the mountains, it's sometimes, 3 dozen, it seems like.
I think we had like 50 people in February, so.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We sometimes get a lot, but not always. And, depending on how we want to do it, I mean, we've had Mountain Watch the last couple of years has been having signups on the website ahead of time, and we can cap the number if they're willing to host that. Otherwise, we could probably set that up through the city's website to have people sign up if we need to keep it to a certain number to just be manageable and not be, potentially compromising the site.
So, yeah, however you come up with it, Mountain Watch would just be there for moral support as opposed to sponsoring it. But I'm excited about it because it's important.
Do you want children, or do you just want adults?
Well, well-behaved children.
Okay.
That's usually
No,
the Brisbane kids. that you get.
That's to your point. That's to keep them out of areas that are sensitive. But
That's the only
it's
kind
usually-
of children we have in Brisbane.
I thought so.
I've got another question. So for the Mountain Watch volunteer days, we sometimes get people coming from other towns because they get school credit for volunteering. So my questions are along the lines of how much advertising we should do and what kind of numbers are you hoping for? So that's kind of what I'm getting at with these questions.
So, I was hoping that it could be something to the effect of like a introduction to stewardshipness. Is that a word?
Sounds good.
Becoming a steward of, huh? Yeah, thank you.
Stewardshippery.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was hoping that could be kind of like the gist of what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote this opportunity to become a steward. And that could be a good introduction. And that's why I wanted some educators there to be able to go over a lot of stuff that is important to know.
Do we want to try again to see if we can get this video to play with sound?
Yep.
No promises, but.
How many of you have seen the video?
Actually, hang on.
He just showed up that day.
Share sound.
So this is unscripted by everybody that's in this film. It's like, really? Really? What's special about this place is that all of a sudden you come upon this little wetland that is so diverse, you wouldn't think that something like that could survive in this industrial area. What you see here is what you would have seen back in the day before the urban civilization took over. It does look like a drainage ditch, but it's more than just a runoff. It's a seep-fed, viable habitat. And this little marshland was basically saved efforts of a handful of people.
You need to go under here like this. See how I'm doing that?
Okay.
And kind of rocking it. What this site is it represents something that has basically disappeared in most of the Bay Area. There is a dragonfly nest, and that's one of our main mosquito abaters in here, all the dragonfly nymphs that are in here. The dragonflies are the only insects that eats mosquitoes on the wing. Almost a full assemblage of all the plants that belong up on the mountain are down here. All the seeds, all the plants at some point would wash down into the bottom of this, and this is like a sink down here. Everything collects down here, all this variety. This is the tule that the local Indians used to make the canoes out of. You can make the entire boat with just tule. You can make a tule rope out of this. It's very strong. It's also edible. It's a really great plant. I love this plant.
2.5 years ago when I got involved with this project, there were bags of garbage and so much vegetation that the water was anaerobic. Once you remove all the invasives, the natives that once inhabited that area come back naturally. To actually watch this area be transformed from mosquitoes and mosquito larvae to dragonflies and damselflies and frogs and water striders and the whole aquatic set that's here was amazing.
Some of these plants here, they take up all the space, like one of these guys, okay, which is a non-native lotus. And we want the native lotus to take its place where it used to be. So, but if you take all of it out at once, then there's nothing for the frogs to hide in or feed from. It's about getting nature to do the job, piece by piece by piece. I was born in Brisbane, and I used to come over here when I was a kid. This was a lake where that building is now. It was a seasonal lake. We used to crawl through the grass, go over the railroad track, and watch the garter snakes and the frogs and the dragonflies. It is still here. It's just drastically reduced. It's the remnant of an enormous population.
The morning that I would say the wetlands began as a project, Linda had taken her grandson down to look at frogs and found workmen weed whipping the area down to dirt.
There's a whole crew, and I just yelled at them, "Stop!" And they all stopped. They had trashed already half of this strip here by the building.
We got there about the same time as the city engineer, Randy Bro, got there. He was very upset and telling everybody to leave, that they were interfering with city business and that he had called the police. So it was an exciting time, but it ended with us being able to talk to Randy and agreeing to postpone any more weed whipping and then see if something else could be worked out. And so we agreed to be responsible towards a partnership. Brisbane has kind of an identity as an environmentally sensitive city, and someday that will attract businesses. That's what I'd like to think.
This area is on city property, private property. Fortunately, the landowners were willing to accept some terms, and we were able to work on their property. It takes a great deal of cooperation to come together to proceed with maintaining these wetlands.
One of the elements that we do at this project is continuously manage the grasses for fire safety. You can actually just pull these oats off of here. It's really important when you're dealing with a frog habitat to have food that little frogs and adult frogs need to eat. The frogs are Pacific Chorus frogs, and this is the best and the largest breeding site in the whole Bay Area.
I love volunteering. According to my wife, there's other things I should be doing, but this is what I want to be doing. It gives me great pleasure and satisfaction to know that what it is I'm involved in is something bigger than myself. Right now, this site is being managed by volunteers. Without their efforts and their involvement, this site would be like it was when they found it. And so our effort is to fund the management of this property. And having an actual funding source to manage this would cement our efforts here.
Really, the water is it. And the mountain starts with the help of the foot of the mountain. So our goal is to take care of the whole mountain. And we see expanding the wetlands in the industrial park, making more of the industrial park green and bringing back wildlife that's gone.
We want to be taking care of this property. We want to always, in perpetuity, have this opportunity to be involved in it.
Some things are just beautiful and they're worth having around just because they're beautiful, you know. Makes it a little prettier and nicer.
So that was it.
Perfect.
And two things I wanted to share with you is if you go out there on the channel along the building, you see lots of dead cattails that are all brown. And that's really important because the marsh wrens, which those type of wetlands are disappearing. And so the marsh wrens that's like their primary nesting habitat is in those dried cattails. They do little hanging nests in there. So I leave one season's worth of dried cattails in there, and then this dry season we'll go and remove those, and this year's cattails will be dry next year. So, I also really appreciate the work that the contractors did because they agreed to meet out there with me and were very careful not to work inside the channel. They worked right on the edge of the channel to dig that grass out. And so they were very careful, and which was, normally that doesn't happen, that they agree to meet you out there before they commence their work. So I wanted to let the city know that that contractor was very diligent as to the efforts they did. So, any questions?
Can I
No?
start by
Okay.
saying thank you for
Yeah.
your service and volunteering to keep Brisbane as,
Yeah, I mean,
ecologically minded and awesome as it is.
on the scale of things, as far as how much watershed we have around Brisbane, it's small amount of space, but it just goes to show how with some effort we can create these habitats for our natural environments.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Beautiful spot, and I love it.
Yeah, it's going to be really beautiful when we're done with it. So next year
Looking
this
forward to
time it's
that.
going to
Yeah.
transform even more. So I encourage you guys to go out there at 100 Cypress Lane on the Crocker Trail.
So if I wanted to become one of your educator stewards, that would be by attending one of the volunteer days?
Sure, or if you get my information, we could meet out there and just take walks out there. That's,
I took a lot of aquatic ecology classes when I was getting my biological sciences degree, so I really enjoyed it. And this looks like the kind of habitat I used to stomp around in.
yeah, well, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I had actually walked by there and noticed all those willows and thought, wow, someone has taken a lot of trouble to make this very neat and presentable. And I didn't know at all what the ecology part of it. But by just looking how neat it was and how much more inviting it was now than when I'd first seen it maybe 3 years ago, it's a big difference. So I
Yeah.
think it's a lot more inviting. And if we do this work, it'll make it more inviting for people to go by. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, all right.
Good?
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you
Okay.
for your work, Paul.
Thanks. I'm going to hang around.
Thank you.
Right. All right, so do we need to decide anything specific about this now, or are we going to come back to it, or?
Would it be better to keep talking about this now or talk about it when we talk about like the events committee, which I feel like this falls under the subcommittee, or what is the proper time to discuss?
Is it on the formally on the agenda? I don't remember. I don't know how in
Well,
front of me.
this was on the agenda, so if there's further discussion you'd like to have here as far as a particular date or a subcommittee you want to assign to follow up, then I think we should do that, probably go ahead and just do that now. But we do have a frog habitat subcommittee, so
That's true.
we could also kind of shift this to their, to follow up after the committee.
Okay. Well, what
I
do
feel
we
like
think?
that subcommittee should probably, because they're dedicated, work with Paul to find a date that works with that subcommittee, and this is what I would suggest. The subcommittee works with Paul and the Mountain Watch experts to find a date that works with them. And then I'm not on that subcommittee, I don't think, or maybe I am.
I am.
but-
I was hoping to do it in April. I was going to suggest that. And our next meeting is not until the end of April. So choosing a date now, I think.
I think the subcommittee could discuss the date.
Okay.
I don't think the whole committee needs to
Oh,
be
okay,
involved in
okay.
selecting a date.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
Okay, great. So we'll wait to hear more from the subcommittee about what shakes out there.
Okay.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul.
Okay, so our next item is the tree canopy goal recommendation. Mary, do you want to introduce this at all?
Yeah, I'll just, what I remember from our meeting
Sure.
2 or 3
And-
weeks ago. So I met with Adrian on what would be a reasonable canopy percentage to institute for the city of Brisbane over the next, 15 years, I believe, right? And what the information that we needed to know, we got out of the tool, I can't remember the name of it.
It's the Planet Geo
Planet
canopy
Geo.
tool.
So in order to come up with a percentage, we needed to know the area that was less than, our goal is like 30%. That's bottom line. So we came up with a 30% number, but in order to put that percentage before city council, we needed to understand, okay, what areas do we need to focus on? So the first plan of attack was, okay, what areas can we exclude? So those areas included the Baylands because they will be responsible for putting trees out there. The Marina Docks was excluded, Canopy Hill, the quarry because of the potential development, hopefully not, the acres, the community park, and then any existing canopy that was above the 30% goal, which was calculated by the tool that the city is using. And so once we took a look at that and narrowed it down, we came up with around 4,500 trees needed to be planted over the course of 15 years. And so is that reasonable? Well, when you do the math, it becomes approximately 25 trees a month, which sounds realistic. So that is what we're putting, I guess we're need to get buy-in from all of us on the 30% goal attainment for the canopy within Brisbane. So the areas that we are, and I think it was included in our package, the areas that we will be focusing on is mostly within not downtown Brisbane, but all residential, and I can't even remember what other areas.
Sure. Do you want me to fill in?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So there was a PDF in your packet that I have available. I thought I would go through some portions of so that you had an understanding of some of the underlying data. I don't know if anybody attempted to look, but you do have the ability to go to this website right now and see some of this data. Without an account, you can't necessarily save scenarios, but you can play around with this tool. It does have a bit of a learning curve. There's a lot of things you can do with it, but they're not necessarily the most intuitive. So if anybody is interested in diving in more, let me know. And I have a training video I could, I believe I could share with other folks who are interested. I know the tree subcommittee has already seen it. So what you see here is the 2010 tree canopy from Planet Geo in red. And in 2010, our tree canopy across the jurisdiction was 9%. Of course, that ranges very significantly by different census blocks, which is the kind of smallest geography where you can look at the, particular data. In 2022, the tree canopy had actually grown and was up to 13%. Again, still a very wide range. And some of the growth may be in places like the acres where maybe that's not necessarily where we want tree growth to be happening, whereas other places we're losing trees. So here you can see kind of that difference where we had some census blocks that saw their canopy increase up to 20%, while others saw a loss of up to 13% tree coverage. With the blue-green colors being that growth and the red and pink colors being loss of canopy. This is a little bit harder, but if you're playing with the Planet Geo tool, the order you layer the 2010 and 2022 data in will show you kind of where it's been lost or gained. So right now you can see mostly green, but the places that you can see the red is trees that have been lost or tree canopy that has been lost. So it could just be trimming of trees, or it could be loss of, entire tree or trees. And then on the flip side here, you can mostly see the red canopy, but where you see green, that is the places where we've had the increases in canopy. So this just shows you some of the kind of underlying data sets and tools that are baked into Planet Geo. You can use it to look at different socioeconomic factors or help to kind of prioritize planting areas. I think you can see pretty clearly here the areas in red in central Brisbane are the ones that, would be most ideal to focus on plantings in. And then this is where we get into the goal recommendation, and I have the tool open if we want to look at this in any more detail, but as Mary said, we looked at, where is the canopy already above what we might put as our threshold? If you actually put in a threshold of 30% or a goal of 30% and a parcel has above 30% canopy, it actually will tell you to remove trees in that area. And I don't think that's what we want to do. So we just excluded those areas. And then we did set different goals for different regions. So in central Brisbane, or these darkest red areas, we set a 30% goal. In the orange Baylands area, we set a 25% goal, and in the, not the lightest color, but the second lightest color, commercial areas, we set a 20% goal. And then all the other areas in this lightest yellow color are ones that did not have a goal set. So they are either places that we don't necessarily want to grow more trees, like Canopy Hill or, the lagoon, the marina docks, or places where the canopy is already above 30%. So if you add up all of that, it comes up with an overall city canopy of 23%, which would mean a 10% increase from the 2022 levels to get to those different overall canopy levels. And then, as Mary said, we kind of broke that down to a lot of that is in a lot of the trees that would need to be planted would be in the Baylands. And in those other areas, we would need to plant about 280 trees per year. That's not just trees that would be on city property, that would be trees on private properties and public properties. So we would have to think about, what things can we do to incentivize private property owners or to encourage private property owners to plant trees on their properties. Obviously, the city only has so many places that we would be able to put trees. So even at 280 trees a year, that's probably more than we would be able to do on city properties, or at least for more than a couple of years. And then the rest of the attachment was some of the screenshots of the detailed ecosystem benefits that Planet Geo calculates on the canopy growth, and then the kind of detailed, like census block by census block level data about the existing canopy, changing canopy, how many goals, et cetera, or how many trees to reach the goal, sorry. So hopefully that.
I had a question about the data.
Sure.
Is this an integration of snapshots taken over time to account for deciduous and non-deciduous trees?
No, it is satellite imagery that is Planet Geo gets from a satellite that goes over this region. I believe they said in May, every other year in May.
Okay, because I have a tree in my backyard that has no leaves on it half the year and then gives me great canopy for the other half.
Well, you should dive into the tool and zoom into your property and see if it shows up.
But in terms of your goals, is there a preference for year-long canopy over a deciduous tree?
I don't know that level of detail is baked into this. I think that would become more of a question of, what trees are best suited for this area, for the particular property, what kind of goals or interests the property owner has. There's a lot of different factors that go in here. I'm not looking at this at an individual tree level. I'm looking at this as a very broad brush of, what are we aiming for across the city?
I'm curious where the 30% number came from. I feel like I might have missed that.
I thought it was 30%, but it's 30% within the areas that are red.
I think the question you're asking, though, is why did we choose 30%?
25%
Oh,
of
okay.
16.5.
So we asked Planet Geo if they had any recommendations when we set out to do this, because obviously they have this tool, but where were the guidelines? And they didn't really have any. And so we did, kind of some general Google searching of what's a recommended tree canopy in a residential area? And the 30% number kept popping up. But obviously it is very geography and climate dependent. And, we felt like it was maybe a reasonable thing to suggest in some areas. It may turn out to be that we can't come up with that many places on
You think that's
our
a reach?
small hilly lots.
So I'm not going to make friends with you guys today, but I have major concerns because I keep hearing we need more trees. But I think there are trees we need to get rid of and trees we need to prioritize. And here it just feels like we're shooting for a number, right? And I don't feel like an area number is the right answer. I took a walk up the mountain, and that fire road, the paper road, Margaret, when it's not a real road, it's just down tree after down tree after down tree. And so those are decreasing the canopy, but they're all, rotten or eucalyptus or whatever. And so I feel like our tree problem isn't a percentage. I feel like it's a quality and
type of trees,
variety and not a area. Sorry.
No.
I got one more point.
Sure.
All we hear from the fire folks is move the vegetation away from your house. So trying to squeeze more trees into the residential area, I also feel like is kind of counter the message right now. Sorry for being contrary, but
No, I
things are
think
reasonable.
that's the kind of discussion we wanted to have. Is this a reasonable goal? Do we need to adjust this goal? I will say on kind of the other piece of this work that has been ongoing and that we are hopefully going to be bringing back to you next month is the public tree inventory. And we do recognize that we have some work to do. And so we are working on a management plan and recommendations for how we will address that. Of course, that's different than saying what's happening with trees on private property and what maintenance or removals might need to happen there. But at least for the trees on our own, on city public property, that is something we are looking at and will be part of this package that is forthcoming.
I mean, one of the discussion items we had was included, well, how do we incentivize folks to plant trees? And how can we control the type of trees they plant? And so I had suggested a tree farm, and Adrian kind of gave me a, Mary, you're crazy. But someone did from the Baylands pulled a permit for a tree farm north of the fire station a while back, and that never came to be. But if you think about it, and knowing the cost of how much each tree costs to plant, it may be something we should consider. Just because we can control the type of trees that get planted. And anyway, so I mean, it may be crazy, but it may be worthwhile to talk about it.
I was just going to comment on that 30% number. I had recently read that the new California building code does have a tree coverage number listed. What they say is for unpaved areas, I've seen a number, a minimum of 20%. And for, that's for like paved or developed areas, 20%, and undeveloped areas, 50%. So our number of 30% seems reasonable, just knowing what those guidelines are. And that's in what they call Title 24 of the code, Part 11. It's in there. It's a new part of the code that was just adopted in 2023. So we can use that as like a rationale where we came up with the 30% number if we wanted to. But I think we definitely should look more specifically at the types of trees, because that doesn't talk about that. And I think, that's as important. But if we wanted to justify the 30% number, I think it's reasonable.
Or we change our goals to be 20% for paved and 50% for unpaved, because that allows us to take the benefit from the acres.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think shooting for 30% is a bad thing. I mean, there are definitely properties that are developed lot line to lot line. And those properties will not be able to participate in this goal, but I think that it's good to have it a little bit on the high side so that we sort of balance out some of those overdeveloped properties. I don't think we'll ever hit that 30%, but I think as kind of a broad thought tool, it's a good number, and we will have to take this case by case. because, because every property in Brisbane's unique. We have a lot of like hodgepodge building around here because of what our history is and stuff. But I think if we're really going to combat global warming, we've really got to push for this if we're really going to keep Brisbane livable.
Well, I had a question in that vein. Are we collecting any kind of numbers around that, around CO2 mitigation or anything related to that?
That is part of the modeled ecosystem benefits. So let me see if I can zoom in here. So this is a little bit more readable. So they have an overall monetary benefit, an air quality benefit, carbon benefit. So I'll pause on that one since you were asking. Our current canopy, they estimate, is sequestering 7,393 pounds of CO2e, I believe this is. And I believe this is on an annual basis as well. And so we would be, this would be the total if we hit this goal, and this would be the net, would be a sequestering an additional 5,196 pounds.
Got it. Okay. So that's not nothing, but, I do think it's worth pointing out that trees are not going to get us out of this.
Oh, of course not.
No.
I think we all know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the trees altered the Earth's climate, back in the Pliocene. I forget, what that was. But there were a hell of a lot more trees then. I mean, we've destroyed somewhere between 70 and 90% of the Earth's forests. So
yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I am definitely not anti-tree. Just we've got a burning stuff problem, not a tree problem.
I think we've got a burning trees problem.
So,
I mean, I would advocate a higher number. I think we should strive for, 25 to 30%. I'm just, yeah.
I'm okay with this. I also think that people on council or at meetings that we bring this to are going to ask the same questions. So
absolutely,
you don't have to convince me, but I feel like we should have answers to those things. And
What was that title number again?
I know what it is. It's Cal Green.
24 Part 11, the Cal Green standard
Yeah.
I have for new development. Yeah,
Very, very
so
familiar.
Yeah.
Wasn't aware that it had tree stuff in it these days.
Tree
but-
coverage. Recent.
Yeah,
yes,
I obviously haven't read the most recent one because I think the previous cycle did not have trees in it.
Yeah, I will say I'd be hesitant to say that 50% in undeveloped areas, because I think a lot of our undeveloped area, putting aside the Baylands and quarry areas, the other undeveloped areas are primarily, in the acres and Canopy Hill. And we actually want those to be grasslands.
Yes.
So we don't necessarily want, we have over 50% canopy in some of those census blocks already. So I don't think we're necessarily saying, at least not at this juncture, go out and remove those trees. We may need to remove some if they are problematic trees, but otherwise, we may want to leave them there, but we also may not want to increase, tree coverage on Canopy Hill.
There's probably a way to translate carbon sequestration in a perennial grassland to a tree.
Oh, I'm
It
certain
might be
there
worth
is.
having that number to the point of keeping the open spaces open is still sequestering carbon.
It is, yeah. I think perennial grasslands are also very good at sequestering carbon, but it's hard to it's hard to maintain a perennial grassland in your backyard. I think trees are actually a little more compatible with houses.
I was thinking more of open space, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let's keep the open space, grasslands, and let's put some trees in with our houses.
So I was hoping to get a recommendation or a request for specific changes, and I'm hearing a lot of different opinions, but not necessarily one specific either recommendation or motion that you want to recommend this as your recommended goal to council, or Adrian, change this about the.
I would go for 25 or 30%. Either one of those I could get behind.
Can we just provide a range, 25 to 30? I mean,
Do you, in a specific area, I mean, right now we are 23% overall and
Yeah.
between 20 and 30 in all of the parcels that aren't, already filtered out for specific reasons. So you
Oh,
want
really?
the overall to be higher? Is that what you're looking for?
So I thought we were filtering anything above 30.
We are not including in the, hey, increase the canopy instructions to the software, anything that is already over 30%.
Yeah.
Or the lagoon, the marina docks, the
Yeah,
Canopy
yeah.
Hill, the Brisbane Acres, the quarry. We are including all of the areas that are not the lightest color are
Yeah, I
set to
got
either
that.
20,
I mean,
25, or 30%.
I guess I don't not having this active tool in front of me, I don't know if we said 25, how much would that knock out,
If we said 25 in every parcel?
Excluding the ones that we don't want to put trees in, yes.
So,
Like,
okay.
the marina and the Baylands and
I have a question about the acres.
the acres and
So I understand the upper acres are grasslands. The lower acres, are they also supposed to be grass or are they supposed to be trees? Because I think of the lower acres as being where all the trees are. I could be wrong. I don't know where the land boundaries are. But are all the acres grass land?
There are definitely more trees in the lower acres, but there are trees
yeah.
in the upper ones.
So like if you go back to the map that had the green,
Mm-hmm.
one up again, up some more. Oh, yeah, this one. All the stuff that's dark green at the bottom of this, I think of that as where it's supposed to be trees, but that's possibly only because that's where it is trees.
This is tree canopy change. So
Oh.
this is areas that have had a dramatic increase in tree canopy.
Oh, maybe that is bad.
So that's maybe not great.
You were right. Yep.
So let me try this at the risk of getting too in the weeds or forest or however you want to put that. So if you look at, for instance, this area, the existing canopy in 2022 is 49%.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. 60%, 36%, 58%, 42%. I don't know if that's helpful to kind of point out some of these specifics.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is First Canyon on that side, like 91%.
Yeah, I think that's the canyon.
And the other issue with some of these is, sometimes it's hard just based on census block boundaries to go into smaller areas. So this is a pretty large census block
Yeah,
that
some of
includes
these areas are pretty
Hill,
pretty blobular.
but a lot of other things as well, as you can see. So that one's only 11%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Adrian, can you explain again how we are using the 30% number and then we're going to get to 23% by 2022?
sure.
Okay.
So let me go back to Go back to
In
this
15
here.
years, sorry, 15 years from 2022.
Yeah. So basically, if you have 30% in these areas, 20% in these areas, 25% in these areas, and these areas, whatever they currently are, and then you say, okay, across that whole jurisdictional boundary, including the quarry, what does that come out to? That's where you come up with the 23% number.
Average across all of Brisbane.
Right. I mean, and that includes, the lagoon.
Is there a way to do that average across everything, throwing out the things like the lagoon and the?
I think I would have to get Planet Geo involved. They may be
Okay.
able to do that. I'm not entirely certain. I feel like I did talk with them. We did talk at some point in time about they could exclude some areas, but I don't know if that means like they can exclude them in those kinds of calculations or if that
Yeah, I mean,
gets
because
into
that would be
something
useful.
specific.
Because it would be, I think it would be much
On the
more
land
interesting,
coverage.
Yeah, to reflect our actual average coverage of actual land areas instead of. Why didn't you plant it? I mean, I suppose we could plant some saltwater mangroves. I mean, I don't think it's warm enough for them here, though. They might help with the siltation in the lagoon.
Yeah.
We just need cold water mangroves. Talk about changing our ecology.
Can you just scroll down a bit? Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm hearing there might be some interest in seeing some other scenarios. Perhaps that's something that Maria and I could work on further. There were some questions about, can we remove the water areas and see what that looks like in terms of coverage for just on land areas? And are there, what would it look like if we said 25% across, basically all of the parcels that we're including, just universally?
If you can figure out how to do it, I would love to see, what was the number Rohendra said? 20% in the paved and 50% in the unpaved, assuming those areas are not meant to be grasslands.
I will see how close we can get to that. So we'll do, yeah.
Yeah,
We
no,
can-
that's a good question. That's a good baseline for comparison.
But would you want to decrease that goal to 20%?
I'd just kind of like to see how many trees that is and what it looks like.
Yeah.
So rather than, just saying 30% across the board,
Yeah.
it means you might get a little bit more credit for the areas that already have 50% trees. And then we can work on pulling the eucalyptus out and putting in better trees,
Yeah.
which I feel like
Yeah.
might be just as big of a benefit at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing that too.
Okay. We can work on this a little bit more and we
Okay.
can bring it back next meeting.
Okay.
There was also supposed to be a list of trees that are smart to plant in Brisbane that I think Shauna worked up.
Yep.
I still haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Do you have
We-
it?
Who has it? Yeah.
Karen and we have it in email, and Michelle has it in email. I kind of don't know how that ball got
Yeah.
dropped. We stopped meeting as a tree committee for a while, holidays and stuff. But she did an amazing job of putting stuff together, and I helped, but she did the lion's share on that one and making sure all the trees that dropped stuff were pulled out. And, we went through multiple tree lists from multiple cities and sort of, and then she dealt with a lot of her horticultural people. And I think we've got a really good, really comprehensive, broad list. I think what the disconnect happened is we got the list, we got the work done, and then we didn't officialize it into a city recommended tree planting list. And I think that probably, and I did bring this up at our last tree subcommittee meeting, is that it just needs that last little push to get it over the line, and we can do that, and we should do that, and it's past due.
So another idea to consider, trying to get people to plant trees, and if you provide them at a low cost, then maybe they will, is maybe bring in San Bruno Mountain Watch or the nursery and start providing trees that are acceptable and at a low cost. I mean, we're going to have to do something like that if we really want to push for whatever the percentage might be, but that will, do you have a question, Paul? Yes, yeah, please.
So I like where you're going with the tree planting, and San Francisco has done extensive research as well as compatible trees with sidewalks and concrete. And if you look at Oak Street, they've planted coast live oaks all the way down Oak Street and found that those trees are suitable, but more importantly, they create habitat and food for the biodiversity. Like the coast live oak is the top keystone trees for biodiversity. And with that said, I know that the Mission Blue Nursery does do contract grows, and it's possible that they could grow trees for you, although it would take many years for the trees to become sizable enough to be able to be planted as a street tree. The city also owns properties in the industrial park that would be an ideal place for a tree nursery if we wanted to grow our own trees or have Mountain Watch. I'm not speaking for Mountain Watch, but there's a great site that could be an annex site, and it could also be a new site if anything ever happened where their nursery is now, which is, they only have a 60-day move-out plan if something happened, if the Baylands people decided they wanted to rent out that site where the nursery is, because that's the only clean site in the Baylands, just north of the fire station. And yes, they did grade that whole site, Baylands or UPC or Baylands Development, to be able to grow trees. But if you're going to grow native trees, which I hope you would, and bushes, some bushes can grow and be shaped into tree-sized trees in Brisbane, but locally sourced tree stock should be used, because a lot of trees that are sizable enough to plant in the street come from growers that are like in Sunol and in the valley and aren't impacted by marine influence. And so the trees tend to not do well when they aren't genetically from the area. So local stock would be preferred.
That'd be great.
So, thanks.
Would you say that your excluded species that, quote, drop stuff is acorn stuff?
I don't have the list in front of me.
Are leaves stuff?
I don't have the list in front of me. I think we concentrated on things that were, particularly on things that like roll, that people will slide on.
There's a backstory that someone
Yeah.
was hurt crossing a street because they tripped on, was it one of the buckeyes or a black walnut? Yeah,
a lot of the
someone
native
tripped
trees
and,
drop
yeah.
stuff.
So this discussion is related to the street trees, so between the sidewalk and the street. And so the dropping of stuff is related to pedestrian
I mean,
safety.
I'm kind of with you. It's a little bit ridiculous because trees are organic and they do drop stuff, but we definitely made an effort to call out the worst of them. Because it is a concern for people, especially since we have an aging population, a lot of whom have, mobility issues. it is something we definitely had to take into account, and we did the best we could with that. Talking to multiple arborists.
Since I haven't really seen the list, do you have those like separated in some way? So the list of a tree I might want to put in my backyard away from the street?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, we don't.
Good to know.
Yeah. You can put whatever you want in your backyard. You can put the messiest, stinkiest ginkgo.
Yeah, there's another step to kind of work with public works staff, the buildings and ground staff
Okay.
to,
Is that what we were waiting on?
well, I think the tree subcommittee was doing a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
this being one of them, so.
Yeah, I think part of the problem was we were just going in too many directions at once, really, but.
But as we're making a goal to plant more trees, then we should have that list.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is in existence. It is incarnated. We just have to give it legs.
Are we ready to move on then?
All right, so staff updates.
I have a couple quick updates and then a couple of brief slides that you have a longer version of in your packet that was sent to or that was gone over with our Climate Action Plan Subcommittee last week. So my two things, since I had such a long staff updates last time, are just that the Peninsula Clean Energy contracts for the pool incentive and loan, as well as the local agency grant, have been signed, which means that we can finally start moving forward on the Brisbane Village EV chargers replacement. It's been a long time coming, and I'm not promising it's happening like tomorrow, but we are going to be able to finally move that project forward. The other thing is that I will be sending you an email from our human resources staff about mandatory harassment training that you all have to take as part of your role on this committee. So there are some options to participate in it live on Zoom. If you have to participate in that training, in a mandatory harassment training through your employer and have a certificate,
I will be sending you mine.
You can send that in. And if none of those options work for you, we have an online on-demand option that we could set you up with. So please look out for that email. You will get it from me in probably the next day. And do take it seriously and work on trying to get that done. It's only like an hour, I believe. So I know it's not fun, but please do it. We need you to. So the other stuff was to tell you that we got our 2023 community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. The headline number is that we have reduced emissions by 15.72% estimated from 2025 to 2023. What you see here is kind of the major categories of emissions, and from our last inventory, the 2021 inventory, which we actually only got like 6 months ago. You might recall we went through that in the fall. We had about 2% additional reductions. So glad to see things are still moving in the direction we want, although not at the kind of pace that we would want. We need to be decreasing more and faster, but we're at least moving in the right direction. Here's the breakdown of the sources. Transportation, vehicle miles traveled, obviously being the outsized portion there, with non-residential natural gas being the next largest, and solid waste also a significant contributor. This is a more detailed breakdown of the different emissions inventory sources. So you can kind of see here how electricity, this is darker red here is non-residential, and the one here at the bottom is residential. Were decent-sized chunks back in 2005 and are essentially gone at this point in time. That's thanks to Peninsula Clean Energy, so that's been a huge contributor to our reductions. And a lot of the other sources are, relatively stable, or in the case of natural gas, are growing with their methane leakage associated also obviously growing. So if we look at the state-aligned emissions targets and the targets that were in our climate emergency declaration, this is our current trajectory in blue, and a very, very steep line in orange from where we are now to where we wanted to be in 2030. I think that was, the last slide I had on that. So I know I went over that pretty quickly. Does anybody have any questions or want to
I
hear?
have a question on the on-road vehicle miles traveled. Is that strictly looking at people's driving habits, or does it distinguish between driving an electric car versus a combustion engine car? Because there's a awful lot of electric vehicles in the city.
Yeah, it does include, it does separate out electric vehicle, miles from that. So
Self-reported by the residents? Or
no,
how do they get it?
there's data from the DMV available on car registrations in various jurisdictions, so they can tell where the cars are registered. And this is all modeled, so there's some level of estimation that goes into this entire, well, not every line on this is an estimation, but many of them,
It's just
in
such a big
particular the
proportion of it. I just wondered where
VMT.
it came from.
Yeah, there's a regional transportation model that is underlying this, that is put out by the MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, so the inventories are assembled for us by consultants, Rincon consultants, who work for the county and do inventories across the county for jurisdictions through what we call affectionately the RICAPS program. And so they pull together this data, but they are relying on data from the MTC, I believe it's MTC, transportation models.
It just seems that post-COVID remote work would factor into this.
And it has gone down.
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times, but I believe we've figured out right that we're pretty much in line with the state in terms of the EV adoption.
Yeah, I remember that we looked at compared to across the county, we're pretty much right on average for the county. I don't know if
Maybe not
if I have
statewide.
good comparison.
You don't happen to remember the percentage, do
Statewide.
you? It's failing me too, so
8%? I don't remember, sorry.
yeah. It's below 10 though.
Yeah, I want to say it's either like 6 or 8%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It seems like it may seem like there are a lot of EVs in town, but we're not particularly impressive when you look at the averages, Brisbane specifically, and America generally, we are lagging way behind the rest of the world. So
Must just be my street.
yeah.
You can't walk half a block without tripping over a Tesla, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I think it's worth bringing up, right? It's more than half of the problem locally. If you have the means to get an EV, get an EV.
If you can not drive and do something else, that's even better.
Yeah.
Like walk or bike or take the bus or the train or the commuter shuttle. That's
Free commuter shuttle. It's out there.
Yeah, that is even better, but it's a high ask. I think most people, without even it's doing that again.
oh it's your phone.
Oh.
I think the other thing that's important to remember here is, was it 40-ish% of our on-road transportation in Brisbane is commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
So it's not just your passenger vehicles. A large portion of this is
The
commercial.
Amazon trucks.
Yep. Yep.
And a lot of other trucks.
Oh, yeah. I'm being,
And
Yeah,
that will
I'm
go
picking.
up if the quarry development.
Yeah.
yeah.
Those really
goes
cute
through,
bright
so-
trucks.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's worth pointing out, right? Because we're, people drive, they have cars, and our electricity is practically 100% renewable at this point. It's very, very clean,
Yeah.
So if we have an opportunity to not burn gas, that's the thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Any further questions on this?
If we have a way to electrify transportation of goods, that would also be very, very good.
Yeah.
But that's something that's going to go beyond the city of Brisbane, and I will get off my soapbox so we can move on and get out of here.
Yeah, no, 100% though. I personally do think it's great to start where you can start though.
Yeah.
The levers that you have control over, pull them swiftly.
Did you have any staff updates? No. Okay, I think, whoops, too far. I think we can move on.
Alrighty, so do we have any subcommittee reports? I believe we had some activity.
Anthony and I met with Adrian on climate action. We reviewed this carbon inventory, or CO2E, whatever they're calling it, or
GHG.
GHG, one of those things.
One of those.
One of those acronyms. Inventory in more detail, and we also kind of talked a little bit about funding for some of these improvements. We didn't get very far. We'll let you know more next time on the funding brainstorm. We just kind of we were brainstorming last time. We need a little more time to gel. So hopefully we'll be meeting next month and talking more about that. Bing.
Is this supposed to be an opportunity to reorg or add new members to committees?
It is an opportunity
Okay.
for that.
Okay, should we do reports first so that people kind of get an idea what they're joining, or?
Yeah, I'm
thought.
I'm not sure how many other subcommittees. I know we're starting to get fairly late. I'm not sure how many other subcommittees actually have reports, because we've already talked about tree things and frog habitat and now climate action. So were there any other subcommittees that had anything?
Quick one on education and outreach.
Oh, yes.
I went to the library on Sunday and I tried to check out a grabber, and I was told that they didn't have them.
They're not at the library. They're here.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, they
But
are
they seem
here
like
and
they
at the
thought-
pool and at the marina.
Okay, they seemed to think they were going to get them. Okay.
We had talked about that possibility with them at a certain point early on, and then kind of trying to come up with that program and figure out how the logistics were going to work. And the library wanted MOUs and other things that we, thought were maybe not necessary for a program of this scale. So
Well,
we decided to stick with city
The display
facilities.
looked nice, and they did choose some nice books to put in front of it.
Fantastic.
And all of the coloring books were gone.
Oh,
So they must
already.
be
Okay.
popular.
Yes, she's talking about our latest display at the library, and we had some cute little scavenger activity coloring books that they provided. But I had a feeling they were going to go quickly.
Do we need to cancel the Baylands ad hoc subcommittees now?
I don't know.
I think we wait until we have the next meeting where we have all the chapters divvied up amongst the members, and then maybe take a poll to see if we need it.
I mean, we.
I was only worried about violating the Brown Act or any of those other things. So
Oh,
if
okay.
we don't, I mean, if they're fine staying for a month, I'm down with it, but I was more worried about running afoul of the rules.
No, I don't think we have anything of concern with regard to that. And, you know, I don't know if your subcommittees have met to discuss the specific plan itself, but they could at any time. The specific plan is different than the EIR. The EIR is responding to the developer's specific plan, but you could also comment on the specific plan itself with your EIR comments. So up to you guys how you want to do that, but.
Got it. Okay, I lost that nuance. Thank you.
Anything else on the reports front? Otherwise, I'd say let's talk about reorg.
Can we talk about the dates for the,
No, we're gonna do that in the subcommittee meeting.
oh, okay, okay. Oh, okay, thank you, sorry, okay.
Obviously, anything that says Noonan needs a new person.
Yes. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to, but there would be an opening for.
Right, so 1, 2, or 3 members for each.
So there's room on events, there's room on climate action, there's room on the Baylands specific plan.
So.
You're missing where Jason is, open space plan,
Oh, yeah, right.
frog
So
habitat.
our new members might not actually know what these subcommittees are, and especially the Baylands specific plan subcommittees. So maybe we do need to run through and just say what they
Just
do.
says chapter. I'm like, I don't remember which chapter.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
I know I was supposed to look them up and I did, but I didn't memorize which chapters are which.
I would probably leave those off for now because that is a very future job. But
I can pull that up real quick while we are running through some of the others. So events is probably the most self-explanatory, mostly focuses on the OSEC booth for Day in the Park, but also contributes to some other habitat event planning. Education and outreach, again, fairly self-explanatory, I think, focuses on our OSEC booth at the library, other, posters, flyers, articles that we could put in the Star newsletter. I will say that other people besides for committee members could contribute to articles. I know we've had times in the past where various members wrote an article for the Star newsletter, so that is something that could be done regardless of whether you're on that subcommittee. Climate action, as Barbara alluded to, looks at our emissions inventories with me, comes up with strategies. We've been talking about how we can find more money to do more climate work. Karen, I'll let you talk about the next 3, I think.
The open space plan prior was focused on the Brisbane Acres Priority Preservation Area, and the committee came up with some additional acres to add to the priority preservation area based on meeting some of the criteria to be in it, having natives, having watershed, view shed, I'm not sure. Number of factors. Committee was very active in looking at those sites, putting together recommendations, and the council did adopt that. But the open space plan does look at other areas in the city and where we would be interested in preserving spots as open space if they become available at a price that we could purchase them for. So I think the committee has interest in looking at some of those other areas too. The full committee gets to review the vegetation management for the Brisbane Acres. That's part of the bylaws of the committee. So we have a consultant that puts the plan together, the committee reviews the plan, the full committee reviews the plan, and then gets a presentation about what they did that year. Crocker Trail frog habitat came about because of the work that Paul has taken on, but the committee had a part in getting a consultant, in this case was a biologist with the Resource Conservation District, that did a report about what to do and when in that area, so kind of spearheaded getting that kind of officially on, you know, in the sites to get maintained. And tree issues have been all the things that we've talked about. Canopy, some issues with and the latest ordinance for tree removals or severe pruning or cutting, private or public, and a volunteer effort to help people that can't maintain their trees to maybe particularly cut ivy so that ivy doesn't kill trees, or I don't know, maybe other ways that we could help people that can't maintain their own trees.
And the street tree list, we did that too.
And street tree list.
On the Baylands. Whoop. So here's the list of chapters. Chapter 6 is the circulation chapter. So basically transportation. That was one of the subcommittees that I think only had Barbara on it at this point in time. The others were 3 and 8, development standards and controls and public facilities financing. And the last subcommittee was 5 and 7, so conservation and open space and infrastructure. And then the idea was that everyone would review the other chapters, so executive summary, introduction, land use program and definitions, and sustainability framework, and then the implementation, and then appendices and infrastructure report kind of as needed, as
So-
relevant to your chapters.
Can you repeat the pair that needs a person?
So chapter 6, I think we left this one as a single chapter because it's circulation's pretty lengthy. So that's the one that, you know, I would definitely say we would want at least one more person on probably.
Okay.
But we can have 3 on any of these subcommittees. And I guess I'll just, liaisons to council, I think is fairly straightforward. That's the chair and vice chair, so that's not really up for debate. Baylands Subcommittee and Sierra Point Park Planning, I believe were both appointed by council, so that is not necessarily something we could change. The Lippman Science Fair judging is exactly what it sounds like. So there is an opportunity with that. That just happened in January, so wouldn't come up for almost a year. And then the PCA grant is the Priority Conservation Area Grant. That's a grant cycle that comes up through Bay Area Government Association of Bay Area Governments and Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We're expecting that grant opportunity to come out later this year and hoping to apply potentially for funding to purchase additional parcels in the acres or whatever else we decide we want to.
Start a tree nursery.
Or start a tree nursery.
Yeah. Just keep giving good ideas, guys.
So a committee to kind of focus in on what we would want to apply for the grant and help staff shape that application.
I'm willing to help on the Baylands Chapter 6 because you only have one person there, right? So with Barbara,
Great,
then you
thank you.
have at least someone covering, meet all your immediate needs.
And then the 2 that say Noonan also have an
Could
opening,
have.
but anything that has less than 3 is open.
Yeah.
I'd like to be on the trail frog habitat one, if that's okay.
Great.
We also don't have to settle all of this tonight. I mean, you guys can continue to get your feet wet and join additional things in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Okay, sounds like we're ready for calendar items. We have 2 dates, which also have flyers, I believe, in the subsequent slides. Events coming up in April. The compost giveaway. We're going to have compost delivered by Scavenger on April 10th. And the Earth Day habitat restoration event with Mountain Watch will be on the 26th. And as I mentioned earlier, we're hoping to bring more of the public tree inventory to you at your next meeting. And I think everything else we've gone over before, or as far enough into the future we could talk about at another time. But Julie Rohendra, just so you're aware, this is something we go over each month, and largely won't change too much month to month. And I'll try to call out the new things or things to pay attention to that are coming up. Compost giveaway. We'll be back over at that. Basically, the access road to go back to Mission Blue Nursery, right there off of Bayshore, is where the compost will be delivered. And look out on social media when they drop that. We'll make an announcement. We don't always know exact timing, but. And then Earth Day habitat restoration. We'll be back up on Canopy Hill, meeting at the corner of Checker Spot Drive and Rock Run. Teas and sandwiches as usual. It's a lovely location. If you haven't been there, come out and join us. As I said, we had, I think, 50-ish people at our February event, so we need more sandwiches, apparently. Any calendar item questions?
Oh, you got the new pictures in. Cool.
We got new photos. This is for our new folks' benefit. This is time for you guys to bring up additional things you would like to let the committee or the public know about, or things that if you want to request something on a future agenda, this is the best time to be making those kinds of requests. Otherwise,
Tally ho.
Oh, okay. I'll wait till next time. That's fine.
No, if you've got something.
Oh, no. I was just, I happened to be walking Corey Road, and I called out. Somebody pulled up in a van, and I was watching them. And this is on the San Mateo County side, so I don't know if there's anything we can do. But I watched them, and they started pulling out all their tree clippings, like eucalyptus tree clippings, and throwing them on the side of the road. So I held up my phone and I said, I have your license plate. You need to put that stuff back in your van and take off. There needs to be some type of camera down there. People are throwing stuff down there all the time. I don't know what we can do, but it's happening. And especially,
Did they pick it up?
Pardon me?
Did they pick up their dumping?
Yeah,
when you
they
said
were
that?
taking
Oh.
tree branches out and throwing it on the side of the road.
Yeah, but when you called them out, did they pick it back up?
I
or-
told them, I go, you better pick it up or I'm going to report you.
And did they?
Yeah, they
Okay,
put it
good.
back in, but I said, I'm going to come back and check. And if they're there, I'm going to go to the police station. I didn't go back and check, so I feared for my life at that point.
Don't
so.
tell anybody that.
Yeah,
Yet,
Yeah.
Mary.
yeah. Anyway.
I sent one of the dark skies forms to a neighbor who had a really blinding light that was on all night. And within a day, they changed the bulb. So it worked. It was a really nice
Fantastic.
experience.
Yay.
Still not shielded and it's still on all night. It doesn't have a motion detector, but it's progress.
Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Yes, yeah.
Totally anecdotal, but I do feel like I can see the stars better lately.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Do you remember what month it was we walked up to the water tower? We should do that a year later.
Yeah,
is
I
probably
think
right
it
now.
was. Did we try to?
I
Well,
wanna say
we
it was
timed
May.
it by like moonrise and all of that. I was thinking originally we had talked about like something around the summer solstice, but
Well, that sounds like a
I think
job for
it
the
ended up-
events committee, which I'm on, so.
Yeah. I mean, it was
Let's have
definitely.
an events committee email about that one.
okay.
Okay.
I I think I missed the first one because I had a whopping headache that day. So opportunity number 2, I'm down.
Yeah.
All right, and so our next meeting is April 23rd, and I guess that's it. I think we're adjourned. All right, so thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job.
Oh, bang, bang. Bang.